Welcome to Ride On, episode 7. I'm James Gross, and I'm joined by my co-host, Julia Thane. How you doing, Julia?
James, doing great. Doing great. I'm liking our coordination of the outfits here, stars, stripes. Just need a little bit of red, and then we got an American flag going.
America. All right, yeah.
No, we can't start off the show like that. Somebody cut that.
Oh, beautiful. No.
Oh, God. Absolutely not. Edit.
When's the last time you did the Pledge of Allegiance, Julia?
Oof. It was a little while ago. And let's not try it here because...
I can't put you on the spot for the Pledge of Allegiance.
No, you absolutely cannot. We're not doing a Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of a micromobility podcast that has a global audience.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's just an anthem.
I mean, public school students everywhere know how to say it. So that's all I'll say.
That's true. Yeah, it's been a while. Okay, no national anthem. For all the viewers at home, every week, Julia and I pick topics that are coming from the Micromobility Newsletter, which hopefully you subscribe to. If you don't, please do. And we try to just pick topics that we think would be interesting to you and relevant, and we discuss them. As well, we have a guest now, basically, on every show that we've been doing, and we'll have another guest today, which is very exciting, who's got a new vehicle coming out. And yeah, I won't tell you more until that guest comes on stage with us. And so before we start, there's a couple of just housekeeping and very fun announcements that we have that I wanted to mention and just bring up. The first is actually one of our announcements. So we announced a partnership with Electrified Reviews earlier today on our newsletter. This was really about trying to help micromobility companies both launch and have the best video reviews possible when they launch new vehicles. So what you're probably seeing as a theme every week with us is there's a ton of new vehicles coming out, as Julia likes to say, the Cambrian explosion of vehicles. And we're trying to do our best to catalog those vehicles. And we are partnering with Electrified Reviews to really help us on the video and production side. So we cover launches like in our newsletter and of course on shows like this. The folks at Electrified Reviews, we believe, do some of the best reviews really out there. And, I'm just showing you their YouTube page, but they've been doing this for a long time. They cover the spectrum from e-bikes to scooters to skateboards and one wheels. And of course, they're getting more into even larger micromobility vehicles like NEVs. So we announced this partnership, super excited about it, and just wanted to, of course, let you know about that. The second thing I wanted to mention was the global incentive tracker that we actually launched last week. Just give you an update here. Big shout out to people that have been sending in incentives to us. We've added about 20 incentives in the last week. So we had a little over 400. We added 20. So I don't know what's the math on that, Julie. We've added about 5% to we've grown the index by about 5% week over week. So imagine if we can just keep up with that pace, the compounding annual growth of that would just be. And so, yeah, super great. Thanks to everyone who submitted new incentives. I think we've got, 4 new incentives in the UK. I think we've got a couple of more now in the continent of Asia. Shout out actually to Oceania, our first incentive out of the Oceania continent coming from New Zealand, which is very exciting. This is actually not an active incentive, but it's a proposed incentive around a fringe tax benefit for companies offering e-bikes to their employees and not having to pay the fringe tax cost on that. So yeah, we're really excited about this. It's super great to see everyone, sort of sending in information. And yeah, we hope you will continue to do that. And then finally, wanted to briefly mention that we have our party in Paris next week at the Autonomy event. We can only fit about 100 people into that party. We have way too many RSVPs. But if you haven't RSVP'd yet, please go to the Micromobility Newsletter. You'll see a link there to RSVP. And we'd love to see you in Paris next week. Yeah, so those are some of the announcements. What do you think of all these announcements? Is that too much, Julia?
James, I was honestly thinking exactly that. This is too many announcements. I mean, if we're going to be doing an announcement a week, this is going to start to get a little crazy.
I agree.
50 announcements a year. I mean, what's next?
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have another announcement actually when Cowboy comes on. So I didn't even want to, what's the word yet? It's just announcement.
Yeah, might be our most exciting episode yet.
I think so.
Yeah, no. But in all seriousness, I think the partnership with Electrified Reviews is going to be a really great one. I've been saying to you for a while, to the group for a while, that especially for the way in which I ingest content, it's very helpful to have videos and how-to videos, but also editorial videos around each of the various micromobility devices. I mean, there's so many of them out there that Ride Review offers that great place to scan. What are the pros? What are the cons? Give me like the 10 most important things. And I think that's really, really helpful. The search function definitely is really helpful. But to be able to compare and contrast videos too, see what the bike looks like, see what it looks like in comparison to a person, see how a person is using it. I again just think it'll magnify the user or the customer experience in terms of making that micromobility choice. The one thing I didn't see, James, on that page, but don't get me wrong, maybe Electrified Reviews has this, but is any women and girls? So where are the women and girls who are testing out these bikes? I think there's when I tend to look at whether it's automobile reviews or whether it's micromobility reviews, no shame to guys, but it tends to be just guys. So I think having a diversity of people who are also testing out these micromobility devices is going to be really, really important, because you want the customer to be able to see themselves in the video, and just in general and micromobility. I think we have still a ways to go in terms of diversifying the customer base and making sure that not just the vehicle itself is good for a lot of use cases, which, a lot of companies are popping up for different use cases, but also the way in which it's represented, whether through advertisement or through these editorial videos, is similarly diverse.
Yeah, I mean, way to shame our new partner, Julia. That's our partnership. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're totally right. Most of the reviewers that are out there that have like really big audiences tend to be male. I will shout out actually to the reviewers that won the best reviewer at the Micromobility Awards, Electroheads. They have quite a few female reviewers, which is really cool. So yeah, but that's the area, and that's where Julia, we got to get you on these bikes. Ride with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And certainly also diversify founders. And it's not about shame at all. It's just about calling out the truth. So, that's why you've got me on this show, James, to represent different opinions.
Give me a jerk.
So with that said, James, any other announcements you want to give?
Not right now. I mean, I might have more coming, but yeah. I'm good right now.
You're all done with your quota of 3 for today, or maybe done with your quota of 3 for today.
Maybe.
Yeah. So James, I know we're gonna hop into the news here, and unfortunately, hopping into the news on a relatively somber note, but one that certainly merits quite a bit of discussion. So taking a deep breath here, because there was a mother of 2 who was killed on a street in Brooklyn, in New York City. And it was a street with a history of fatal crashes. And the family of the mother who was killed at this intersection is seeking $100 million in damages from the city. So her family is not only suing the city itself for negligence and saying, you knew that this was a dangerous intersection. Actually, in previous years, children and another mother of an unborn child had been killed. I mean, just absolutely horrible stuff. And so the family is suing the city. The family is also suing the company of the truck driver who ended up, unfortunately, running into this woman. So, this poses a really important question, I think, for us, James, which is, if a driver kills a cyclist on a street with a history of fatal crashes, should the city be liable for negligence? What do you think?
Hold on, I'll be right back, Julia. I ain't safe to Julia, so I had to get the safe to James Road. It's important.
No idea what that was about. Yeah. It's like, James okay? Did one of his kids come in?
I had to get ready to have my safety conversation. And this is how they want us to look when we're supposed to be riding our vehicles around as ridiculous as possible. So I'm going. Unfortunately, I brought this out in a sort of a not a light moment. So But yeah, I'm going to wear this every time we talk safety now. I think this is a common occurrence. We've seen this down here where I live in Southern California. There's been some high profile lawsuits. There's actually one, basically, well, right now there's a case going on of a father who was killed, and they're sentencing the person that ran that person over. But I assume that will go eventually to a civil lawsuit as well, both probably against that person as well as the city, for negligence. And I think here in America, like, this is one way to get things done is you sue people, and you sue cities. And unfortunately, I think it's actually a good way to make change, because these lawsuits are cost taxpayers a lot of money, and generally when you cost people a lot of money, they really pay attention. And so there's examples like this where there's been real negligence on certain streets, and one way to solve that is not to go to the city council meeting, and band people together. It's just to bring the lawyers out. So I think it's a healthy part of our judicial system, and I think it's I hopefully it makes the bike lanes seem a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Curbs and the and the ADA compliance and everything else when you frame it in these like sort of asymmetrical windfalls of what you end up having to pay when tragedy strikes.
Yeah. And I think you make a good point there, James, in terms of, you know, the investments that cities could make in infrastructure are actually much cheaper than what they'll end up paying in settlement fees in terms of all of these lawsuits. And just to give an example of that, in LA, actually, the city was sued because of the terrible state of all the sidewalks. It was like something on the order of like 700 or 800 million or something that the city ended up during the settlement having to put into redoing a lot of the sidewalks that were problematic and out of compliance with ADA. And the urban legend is sort of that the city was like, please do sue us. Please do sue us because we're at a political stalemate. We can't get all of our council members plus our mayor to get on board with putting the money into sidewalk repair that needs to happen. So if you sue us, this actually forces our hand in being able to do that. So, I would tend to agree with you here. It shouldn't have to come to this. It shouldn't have to come to a lawsuit that then requires cities to put in bike infrastructure or infrastructure that allows for cyclists and pedestrians to be safe on roads and on sidewalks. But at the same time, if it does, it does. And I think the city should take some responsibility for making sure that those intersections and those roads are safe for all users. So, James, speaking of safety, the second story that I have is about bike helmet use. So 1 year after Seattle repealed its bike helmet law, the amount or the percentage of helmet use in the city remains almost exactly the same. And that's what we're seeing here. So this was a Streets blog article basically showing the survey results and the observational results between 2004 and 2022 of the number of helmets used, the number observed, and then the usage rates. You can see that with adults, with teens, with children, and then even with infants are also wearing bike helmets. So just to give an example of that, in 2004, you saw about 60% of teens who were using helmets. And then in 2022, saw about 72% of teens who were using helmets. So James, what do you think is going on? I mean, there's no bike helmet law, and yet you're seeing more people wear bike helmets.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's a really good study and survey. I mean, like, look what I'm wearing. It's so ridiculous. And I think that way about helmets. And I think that's okay to feel that way. And so I think I like this idea that it's a choice. I mean, clearly for kids, we've seen like safety regulations in cars around car seats and stuff. Mandatory to have kids in car seats. I think that saved like his lives. So that's really good. And so I think, anyone under 18, I think this idea of like mandatory helmet laws for them is a good idea, and it's safer. I think as an adult, I think it's a personal choice. And I think not having the laws is good because it doesn't restrict people from riding where like you might have friction. And then just in general, like a call to the industry is like, we just have to make We have to make cooler things. We have to make.
I totally agree with that.
I see cyclists on the road and they shame each other for not wearing helmets. You see a little bit of that, and um, I think it's pretty lame. I don't think it's a good idea, and I think people don't feel comfortable or confident in safety gear like I'm wearing. And so I think this is just a call to action that we should continue to try to inspire and build things better and make people feel more comfortable in their skin when they're riding. Um, and so, yeah, I think what that study shows me is people that care about helmets wear helmets, and they're going to wear helmets regardless of the law. And so that's probably don't need a law. In that case, I think for kids, it's different.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, James. I mean, to your point around new accessories or having new and cool accessories. The other thing that really strikes me about the data here is that when it comes to rideshare bicycles, for example, you get about half of the helmet usage, personal scooters, half the helmet usage, rideshare scooters, 9% usage rates, et cetera. So you also see some differentiation across the modes, and certainly across whether it's personally owned or whether it's a shared device. I know there were a couple of helmet companies actually. First, at some point, there were single-use helmets. There were like compostable helmets. I've seen foldable helmets. In fact, I've worn a foldable helmet, and let me tell you, that thing looked really goofy. So I do think there's some room for innovation here in terms of what helmets look like, how well they fit into, kind of your everyday bags, or just how you carry things around. And certainly because in part of rideshare or shared use of scooters and bikes.
Yep.
Yeah. So final story from me, James, actually comes from Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo. And Anne Hidalgo, I mean, she's kind of like a transport icon because she's done so much over the past years that she's been in office, to shut down streets to cars, to open up streets to bikes, to do bike share, to do car share. And in this article, which comes from the Financial Times from FT, she responds to criticism that the city's population is shrinking because of her administration's restrictive car policies. And the quote from her is classic Mayor Hidalgo. She says, "The opposition says people are leaving because they can't drive their car through the center of the city. That's stupid. What people say is that they need cheaper housing to stay in Paris. A city's creativity doesn't depend on cars. That's the 20th century. We're in the 21st. James, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, the politics aside, I love that last line on creativity. It's kind of like what I'm trying to harp on a little bit. I'm like, this is not creative, right? Like we're like using these blunt force instruments. I think a lot in micromobility to try to win, or and we just we have to be able to think differently. So I think people like Mayor Hidalgo, like, that are really trying to help people think differently. I think that's really great. I think the ugly side of it is just the politics of all of it get in the way. And, I think we see that here in the United States with certain urban areas that are seeing declining populations. And, I don't think we have the issue that like it's because we're pushing out cars, but it might be something else. And so I think Paris is probably losing people for other reasons, is my guess, like she's saying. So that's good. And then I think her saying like we got to get creative. There's just so many good examples where if you can remove cars, the urban environment does get so much better. So I applaud her and hope she comes from Europe. And
Yeah, absolutely. +1 to her coming to Micromobility Europe. Are you going to see her at Autonomy in Paris? Is she good? Is she one of the RSVPs to the happy hour?
she wants to go to the tiki bar. We're just working out what kind of drink she wants at the tiki bar. She'll be at the Hidalgo. Yeah,
That should be your signature cocktail for the happy hour.
Totally. Okay, Julia, I'm going to try to get one topic in before we have our special guest on real quick here. And that's, I wanted to announce, which came out last week. We talked about it very briefly, but Specialized came out with a new bike. They call the Globe Haul ST. And you can see it there, the picture of it. Here's a picture of it. I think, Julia, it has a little bit of that Rad Runner vibe to me.
It does.
I think coming your way. And the price is for Specialized low. I would still say it's a little high for what we've seen and some of the innovation we've seen in this space. But very impressive sort of cargo capacity, which is what you really see actually when you look at the bike and how they're trying to market it, which are with these, sort of cargo panniers, which are not really bags, but are a little bit more heavy duty for maybe cargo loads. This could be for delivery, or, if you're, doing things yourself, it's for something that would be, if you have 4 buckets, you probably are doing something almost work related with it. We liked it. We just, of course, reviewed it. We haven't ridden it yet, but just based on the specs that we've seen, the hydraulic disc brakes, all the things that you would expect from Specialized, I think are here in what they would call a lower purchase price. So it is exciting to see them building vehicles like this that feel more e-bike than the more traditional Specialized vehicle. Our criticism is it does still feel expensive for what you're getting, which again, that just comes down to, your preference on Specialized, the brand. We also don't love that it doesn't have throttle by default. The throttle is as an attachment. It costs more, or again, we're seeing so much of these vehicles, especially in the cargo space, the throttle is so helpful to so many people that are moving more capacity and the comfort of it. And then, just riding, I'm very interested in the rider style with as many panniers on it, like how that actually rides. So again, not a criticism, we're just very, very curious on it. So Julia, what do you think? Are you kind of like, I know Oliver was like, oh, Specialized, just loves the brand, so much heritage. You pull the trigger on a Specialized versus some of the more newer brands that we've seen, some of the newer vehicles we've seen? Just curious your thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I'm glad that they came out with a bike. I think it looks very interesting. I think the price point is interesting. We interviewed Electric. Their price point was $13.99. Talked to Aventon. Their price point was $21.99. No, yeah, $21.99. Then Rad Power was $24.99. Now dropped down to $22.99. So to see $2,700 is a little bit of sticker shock, I think, to start. But I'm kind of in the same camp as you are, James. I think in order to can't think of another way besides pull the trigger, but in order to press go on or press purchase on this bike, I would definitely have to try it. I think, for me, having a cargo bike is advantageous for some reasons, but since I'm not toting around a bunch of kids, it's a little bit different in terms of why I would be using it. So James, what do you think? You going to buy a Specialized anytime soon?
I'm not. I've got a lot of people specifically in this area that I feel pretty happy about. So I don't see a need for it. But shout out to Specialized for getting involved, for coming up with a lower price point than they're used to. And let's see what they do next. Julia, we have a guest I'm going to invite up now. And I'm very excited because you're going to lead this one. And I think you've got much more information on this company and this founder than I do. So I will promote this guest up. Should be joining any moment. Okay. Julia, I'll send it over to you for the introduction.
Fantastic. Hi, Tanguy. Welcome.
Hey, Julia.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. Yeah, fantastic to see you again. So today on the show, we have a very, very, very special guest, Tanguy Goretti, who is the co-founder and CTO of Cowboy. Cowboy, for those of you who don't know it, well, first of all, is beautifully highlighted in your background, Tanguy. So I'm glad. I mean, I was expecting you to ride in on the bike, but I guess this is a good section.
For the next step.
For the next one, exactly. I guess you can't ride a Cowboy in the house. In any case, we'll skate past that comment. So Tanguy, Cowboy is a Belgian-based e-bike company. I know you sell bikes all over Europe. You sell across the U.S. And Tanguy, you've been in the news quite a bit lately, which is part of the reason why we wanted to have you on the show. The main reason today is because you are making a faster bike via software. You've got some new colors. You've got a path to profitability. I just want to give you the floor for a second and tell us what's going on with Cowboy. I mean, you have almost as many announcements as Micromobility Industries does. Like, what's happening to you all? Are you drinking a bunch of coffee? Like, tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, we've been working on this for quite some time. The first one, it's basically the new adaptive power that we have now on the C4 bike. We've been working on this since an article actually published in the US. Basically, when we've launched the C4 and the C4 ST, we had a journalist from Wired saying that we had the best bike in the world, but not for the hills of San Francisco. And his complaint was quite fair. It was just saying that, okay, you don't have any gears, you don't have any buttons, you don't have any level of assistance on a Cowboy bike. And so what you get from the motor was not enough to climb those hills in San Francisco. And so engineers basically started to work on an idea to adapt the power of the motor dynamically to the hills, but also to the wind or to the weight of the bike. And the idea is to constantly look at the environment of the bike to give you the right amount of power. So that way you don't need to switch and you don't need to increase the level of assistance. We'll do that automatically for you. And the cool thing is that, for instance, if you're a parent, you have your kid at the back, you put the kid on the bike, you drive to school, you get more power from the bike, and then as soon as you drop off your kid to the school, then you get this assistance again. And all of that is fully automatic. And first, it was a bit the missing piece of the puzzle if you want to launch new bikes in the future, because with that kind of technology, you can think about a cargo bike, because obviously in a cargo bike, if you don't have assistance and you have different rates in the bike, like when it's full or not full, like you can't do it. Now with Adaptive Power, we can work on that kind of project. We can work on a like a knee touring or all-road bike, because that kind of bike will need like different kind of assistance again. And if it's fully automatic, we can cover that use case. So it's quite exciting for us, because it's not just an update for the C4 bike. It was really a key project for us to expand the product lineup of Cowboy at some point.
Yeah, and Tanguy, yeah, no, I mean, that's awesome. And congratulations on that update. I want to come back to that, because I think what you all are doing is really fascinating in terms of it's sort of like a Tesla style software update, right? You're not changing out the hardware of the bike at all. It's just pushing out this custom software. So let's come back to that. But I do want to say, Tanguy, I had the privilege of being able to test out a Cowboy bike earlier this year. And, you know, some of the things that stood out to me about the experience is, first of all, I don't know if this happens with every customer, but it was delivered to me by a person. So I had somebody in LA come and deliver the Cowboy bike. So it felt very much like a premium service. Even so, I understand that when you ship the bikes to the customer, they come, you know, pre. You basically can ride it out of the box. I thought, you know, it looked incredible, super light. For me, that's very important too, because one of my biggest beefs about other types of e-bikes and e-cargo bikes in particular is they're so heavy. It's very hard for me to carry it up and down stairs. And then certainly the ride itself, it just rides so smoothly. And that was really great. But in terms of this was pre-adaptive power, one of the main things for me that was challenging was the hills. I mean, I'm not even in San Francisco, I'm in LA. And so not being able to, you know, get up the hills, I think was something that I really noticed. And apart from that, it was like, okay, this is a fantastic bike. The hills were the hard part. So nerd out on me a little bit, you know, what's adaptive power? Why is it important beyond, you know, just proving this journalist wrong? What customer challenges were you trying to address, even for people who don't have hills in their backyard?
Yeah, I mean, the main feedback we had was that you don't get enough power from the bike in some use cases. And so if we want to keep the DNA of Cowboy, and basically the DNA of Cowboy is to have a super simple bike to use, so no mode, no gears, no level of assistance, you have to find a way to make it happen. And adaptive power is the solution to those problems. And it's quite interesting, because the release is now live for 2 weeks, I think, and we can see the first feedback of our customers. And we're a bit afraid, because it's always scary to change something as key as the ride feeling. Like you buy a product, like, you know, you buy a bike, you expect the bike to ride in a certain way, and basically we just change that for customers, like for C4 customers. So you can expect some pushback, but really, like it didn't happen. If you look at the feedback so far on social media, like it's super positive. Everyone's super happy about it. The main one, and like if we look at the group of customers that we have, it's really from parents that we can see that we get the best feedback, because they're saying when you have a lot of weight on the bike because you have a child, no, it's so much better for them. So we are glad we can make their life easier, because we know how difficult it is to be a parent already. So if you can get a bit more assistance from the bike, that's amazing. But again, for us, it's really the starting point to do something else in the future.
Interesting. That sounds like a preview to something else. Do you want to give a teaser of some of the other things that you're thinking about pushing out via remote update?
I mean, it's gonna be for the next episode, and I'll make sure to wrap it
Oh,
up.
okay. All right, Tanguy. Interesting. Interesting. Well, whenever you do whatever that is, I would love to be able to do another demo ride on one of the Cowboy bikes. So we talked about remote updates, you know, and I mentioned like, who are you, Tesla? And I just think it's really fascinating. How much do you think that this distinguishes you from the competition? You know, which other companies are doing this? How much did you do this as kind of a customer experience, sort of special feature of Cowboy bikes?
I think it's going to be key for the entire bike industry in the future. And so you will see that more and more. I think Cowboy is really leading the pack today in the connected space. And it's interesting for me to see like what happened to the smartphone industry, for instance, because if you look at the first iPhone, when everyone was trying to compete, basically you try to have the same hardware. But then if you look at the iPhone 3, iPhone 4, iPhone 5, like the difference between the hardware was smaller and smaller, even between those iPhones, but also the competition. And the real difference came from the software. And if you look at the bike industry, you can already see that happening. Like, you had two key moments for me in the bike industry. You had the electrification of the bike, so those battery controller motor that we can now put on the bike. It's pretty easy to do. And then some companies like Cowboy started to connect the bike. But at some point, when you have Bluetooth, GPS, 2G, 4G, movement sensor in the bike, like the difference will not come from the hardware, the difference will come from the software. And at Cowboy, we have like many updates coming this year. Like, I can't tell you more about it, but I can't wait to push those to our customers in 2023. But again, we believe we'll be able to deliver more and more value through software, because actually the hardware will become a commodity. And you can already see that, like, you have some sign of that happening in the industry already.
Interesting. And Tanguy, I mean, all of these software updates are just, you know, pushed forward automatically, right? It's not like the customer has to pay for adaptive power or anything else.
No, it's completely free, and that's the beauty of it. Buy a bike 12 months, 18 months ago, and then from one day to the next, it becomes better. And like C4 and C4 ST got adaptive power, but for the next update, it will be for the entire bikes, the entire fleet, sorry, so C1 to C4. So all the customers, or C1 customer will get an update to make the bike better.
Okay, so we got you to get a little bit of a preview, a little bit of a teaser as to what some of the updates are that are coming out. Tanguy, maybe final question for me, and then I'll turn it over to James. It seems like what you're describing, you know, in terms of you buy a Cowboy bike once and then you get all these software updates, helps justify your price. I mean, your price is higher than a lot of the other e-bike prices, even the ones that we were talking about today in terms of some of the e-cargo bikes. Is that right? Did I characterize that right? How are you thinking about price?
I mean, you have to make a difference between the US and Europe. If you look at the average bike price in Germany or in the Netherlands, for instance, Cowboy is not that expensive. Of course, if you look at the US market, the US market is a bit specific. It's still not that mature. And what you can see is with time, the price of bikes, it's basically going up because customers, they want more quality, they want more functionalities. And so we also expect the price of the US bike to go up at some point. It is true that today in the US, at least, we are a bit more premium, but it's not the case at all in Germany. Like in Germany, if you go to a bike shop, like most of the bikes, like if you want a Bosch motor, you will pay 3,500, 4,000 euros for a city bike. So I believe we are quite competitive on that. And a reason why we're competitive is that because we are direct to consumer. So we don't have shops, we sell online, we do our own bike, our own product. Now we have a pretty good scale, so we can see some saving on that front as well. And I think like 2,000 euros is quite attractive for the product that we have.
Excellent. Well, Tanguy, thanks so much for sharing with me all of these different features of the software update. James, any questions for Tanguy?
Yeah, hey Tanguy, great to have you on. Thanks for coming on. You also announced raising some capital. You also had put out a post on your LinkedIn that I had seen where it looked like at the maybe the half yard line there, you had some challenges with some publications coming out and saying some things about your company that you didn't think were true. As someone that's raised a lot of capital, I know that can be really hard and stressful. I'm just curious, what does this capital do for you? I know you mentioned sort of, gross margins improving, path towards profitability. Like, And also just to applaud you, like, many companies right now, even here in the US, are literally shutting down because they can't get more capital raised or they overcapitalized and now they just don't have enough of a business. To me, with what you guys put out, you have a strong business, you have growth, and of course you have the investors now that are supporting you. But I'd be curious, like, are you on a pathway to go public? And come out like more like a Rivian, or are you looking at like, hey, we can get our gross margins to a place where we're a profitable business, we can just continue to run it like this privately? Hey, what's the 5-year plan with that with your capital?
That's a good question. Like 5 years plan. Really, to start, the goal is to be profitable during summer. So with the margin that we have now, so it's basically back to pre-pandemic level. So it's quite healthy, and also with the scale that we have now, so we did like 41 millions of revenue last year. We expect to grow in 2023. Not like last year. Like last year, we almost did ×3. It's not going to be like that in 2023, but still we can see some growth already in Jan and Feb. And basically we have enough. Like the company is big enough now to be profitable. So that's going to be the focus for us. To be fully profitable in 2024, but we should see sign of that during summer already. So that's plan A for us. We don't want to raise more capital, or if we do it, then it's to continue to grow and to expand even more, but not to survive. And I think this is what everyone is doing in the industry, at least in the tech industry. Like the market has changed so much that we have to adapt. And this is what we did the last 12 months. It's not new actually. Like we started this change in direction in 2022 already.
Yeah, and again, I applaud you for that. And I know I have a lot of friends in the industry, in the software industry, growth industry, and they're really struggling to, of course, like turn the battleship so quickly towards profitability and not on growth. So it sounds like you had an explosive growth year. Now, not only you're coming off 3x growth, and now you're saying, okay, well, we got to be profitable. That's very hard to do. So awesome that you can do that. But if I look at your lineup, and now you've got adaptive power and you've got backward compatibility, and you're following a playbook, to me that seems like you're building machines that can compete against companies that sell vehicles for $150,000. At some point, I think and it sounds like you're not saying it directly, but it sounds like there's other vehicles coming, and more of a portfolio of vehicles that will Cowboy will have in time. Do you think you have the investors that are going to support you with the idea that at some point maybe profitability isn't the answer when you're literally building vehicles to displace SUVs and trucks and other things like that? Or do you think you can stay profitable even as your portfolio is going to clearly grow, or needs to grow? You got to invest in that to make that happen.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't have the answer to that question. The ambition is to build one of the biggest players in the bike industry. We know that today we have to focus on profitability, because even if you want to raise money to grow faster, you have to be profitable. That's the new rules. So that's going to be the focus. And then once we are in that position, we'll see the options that we have in front of us to grow faster. So it's not impossible that we raise more capital at some point in 2024 to accelerate. But again, if we do it, it's to grow. It's not to survive.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah, and I applaud you there, Tanguy, because there's plenty of companies that probably need to die because they raise too much capital or whatever. Cowboy is not one of them, and I hope your investors have the vision to see this play out. And when you do need to raise a bunch of capital because you got so much going on, I hope you have that support.
Yeah, maybe directly from James. Yeah, James is going to be bankrolling Cowboy. So Tanguy, thank you again for coming onto the show. It's been absolutely wonderful to speak with you. And I know that in keeping with the theme of our show, first of all, I wanted to show this beautiful bike and all of the colors that you're releasing it in. In keeping with the theme for the show, I think, right? We're doing a Cowboy e-bike giveaway. Yeah? Otherwise, we're going to have to edit this part out.
No, we are. And thank you. Thanks so much for the audience. We'll have a giveaway on our website. You can go and you can, that's usually sharing permission. We'll explain to you how you can sign up, and we'll announce the winner next week. So big thanks to Cowboy and to Tanguy for allowing that. And I think we're going to hopefully make one of our audience members super stoked when they get one.
Yeah, fantastic. So Tanguy, thank you again. Any final words before we let you go on with your day?
No, I mean, Thanks again for having me. Thanks for everything that you do for the bike industry. And I might see you in Paris. I know that you organize a small party.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah. I'll see you next week.
Tanguy, get the Hidalgo cocktail drink. They're going to make a special tiki drink in honor of Mayor Hidalgo. Let me know how it is.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, Tanguy, have a good rest of your day. Night. Awesome, James. Well, it's always good to see Tanguy. I mean, that company is really interesting. Cowboy. I think, I've been able to talk to not just Tanguy, but also to the COO of the company, and just did a deep dive with him. And I won't go into it right here because I'm sure they won't want me to share, but just around the operations and how they do the sales and the manufacturing and all the distribution centers. And I will say, of the companies that I've talked to, they have a really interesting, really lean, really agile way of running the business, which I admire. So, James, why don't you tell you listeners of this how they can get the Cowboy giveaway?
Yeah, absolutely. And Julie, great point. So I'm so glad you had a chance to dig deeper into that company. On the giveaway, you can just go to ridereview.com. You'll see at the top we have an announcement around the giveaway. The top right now might be a little lower by the time you see it. You just click in, and then this will bring you to a page which will allow you to do the giveaway. All you need to do is submit your email and what country you're in. And then as well, of course, if you want to, of course, look at our subscribe to our channel and comment there as well, that would be great. So yeah, just go to ridereview.com and you'll see that, and we will announce the winner the following Friday. Cool. Julia, do we have time for one more topic?
Let's do one more topic.
Okay, I'll know one more. So, a pretty interesting announcement yesterday that came out that it was great to hear Tanguy basically said they tripled the business last year. Our friends over at Cake made an announcement on LinkedIn yesterday that they have secured an order book from 3 different countries. And they actually did this over sort of the 3 days they made this announcement. The first order was from Greece, which was 2,000 units of their, and they don't classify what vehicles. So if we know Cake, we know, and Julia, I know you've ridden a bunch, everything from a dirt bike to more of a street style moped to now they've got a cargo e-bike as well, and a couple other vehicles. So the portfolio is kind of big. But they announced with Greece they're doing 2,000 units. Then they came out and announced with Mexico they're doing 50,000 units. Then they came out and announced with China they're doing 150,000 units. So just to give you a sense, and yeah, Whoa is right. Like this is pretty big. So I wanted to share my screen real quick. So someone I really like on Twitter, Praveen Joel Jones, he just happened to put out a tweet last week which said, hey, because he was looking through Cake's revenue. He said in 2021, Cake did $10 million in revenue and lost $13 million, which is not good. If we just heard what Tanguy said and we know the market we're currently in, this market would be okay pre-2022, but now the market has completely shifted and you can't lose $13 million on $10 million in sales clearly in this current market, even though, as Praveen mentions, they doubled their revenue from 2020. So we don't have their 2022 numbers, but let's just assume it's not that much of a difference. But with this change, they're going from, what I just mentioned there, that's 200,000 orders. If you take that at an average price of $5,000, which if we know the Cake portfolio, $5,000, some of the vehicles are a lot more. There's a couple that are slightly less. That's $1 billion in revenue.
That's crazy. What?
Right. And so clearly, there's some different language I was looking into in terms of the North American, general manager versus what the CEO was saying, what is an order or how long of a period of time. But no matter what, this is no longer a $10 million company, which is awesome for our industry, right? And again, when we move from orders of magnitude to going from 10 to 100, that's a monumental leap. Going from 10 to 100 to $1 billion is amazing. But so, yeah, I just want to applaud that. And I think it's really important for our industry to start to see order books like this. And clearly, we've been doing a lot with government incentives, and clearly governments want to invest in these vehicles because of all the benefits that they have. And so I think we're starting to see it. And then finally, my pitch is in one of the stories that they gave, on how they got these deals with Mexico and with China, it really actually came down to events. So they gave a shout out to CES in terms of where they met these people. I thought that was pretty cool in terms of course, what we try to do and bringing people together. And it's just important. Like we have to bring our industries together, and whether we like it or not, unfortunately, a lot of people that have the type of money to buy 150,000 orders often don't even know about our industry yet. So, and so we have to do so much to try to educate and let people know that there's great companies like Cake or Cowboy that are out there that are actually, that can build vehicles, to scale, as you mentioned, knowing about Cowboy's operation. So yeah, what do you think, Julia? I mean, I don't want to give out numbers that aren't real. Again, these are numbers found on LinkedIn and that the CEO published, but yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're tapping into something, James, that's really important. And I had wanted to show this picture actually, because what you're tapping into is that, above and beyond micromobility being at a more affordable price point, it's sustainable, it gets you where you need to go. It's also just fun. And I think this comment around how Cake actually met people through events reminded me of the event that Micromobility Industries threw in LA with Cake Bike. At a place called the Motoring Club. And it was fun. I mean, it was fun to be able to get everybody on these Cake Bikes, fun to be able to ride around a parking lot, fun to be able to have a couple of glasses of wine, maybe we did, maybe we didn't, to be able to test out some of these bikes. But, overall, very happy to hear that from Cake. I actually want to dig a lot more into the details of that, of those deals. So maybe somebody from Cake will come join us on the show. Because it'd be great to hear, are these the governments of those countries that are buying those bikes? Where are those bikes going to go? Are we going to see something that's like an evolution of a voucher program where they're just going to do bike giveaways? Or is this going to be something more like being used for government employees? So lots of questions there, but I think in general, great news for the industry to see not just individual customers and consumers who are getting into this, but also the governments themselves. So James, with that, I know we've had a bit of a lengthy episode, but I think it went out with a two bangs, Cowboy and Tanguy, and then this news from Cake. Anything else you want to say to viewers before we sign off?
No, I think that's it. Again, please, keep the comments coming, keep the incentives coming. Please submit to win the Cowboy for next week. Again, I don't think you're going to be disappointed in that bike, especially with the adaptive power. And, congrats to Cake, and just awesome to see hopefully we'll see our industry move into the billions. Like, I think that would just be great to see these companies starting to do that type of revenue. So yeah. And Julia, don't think I'm forgetting the can't ride a Cowboy inside comment. Not letting that out.
Boom.
I knew that was going to come back. Dang it. I can't believe I said that. My parents watch this show.
Got to put the not safe for kids on.
Yeah, James's kids watch this show. Yeah.
Right on, I guess.
All right. I can't say it. Let's end the episode now. All right, James. Hope you have a good day.
Yeah.